Start recording. Okay, so we will be recording this session tonight, so make sure you have parent permission to turn on your video. But we are super excited to have you all. Thank you for joining. And all of our speaker events have been at kind of different times, and some people's schedules don't allow them to join, which is why we've been recording and posting after the fact. So tonight we have with us Alekhya Polina, and we are super excited to speak with you. She is a UX motion designer at Amazon and has also worked in theatrical marketing, I believe, and let's see, I don't want to mess this up, so let me just read advertising, and she's now working in the tech industry. So she's got a bit of an art background, and we're super excited to have her here with us. So take it away if you'd like to just start chatting or show a presentation, whatever you have planned. People can chime in with questions as they have them.
Hi, I'm Alekhya. I'm currently a UX motion designer at Amazon. I know that sounds like some words that don't make sense, so we're going to get into it. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Let me change so that you have permission. Oh, I think all panelists can share, so let me know if it doesn't work for you.
It says I can't record until...
Let me promote you as host real quick.
Okay. I might have to come out and then come back in real quick.
Okay. All right, looks like she's back. Perfect, we can see it now. You may be on mute though, I can't hear you anymore, but we can see your slide deck, which is awesome.
You can hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. Like I said, my name is Alekhya. My background is in motion design and prototyping and design. So first of all, we can talk about what is motion design. So motion design is everywhere around you. Every time you look at a screen, you're using motion design. When you are using your phone, all the apps, the way that they move, that's all motion design. When you're watching a movie and you see the titles, you see the end credits or the trailers, all of those animated text, all of that is motion design. Or if you're looking at an ad, so I know all of you know what movie that is from. So in Ratatouille, the scene where he eats the cheese and the strawberry, that is all motion design. The backgrounds and the sound and all of that is showing it's actually a neurological condition called synesthesia, where you basically can use two senses at once. So if you're like a visual and audio synesthete, which is what they're showing in this GIF here, it's kind of like, or Ratatouille is like a food and visual kind of thing where he's tasting these things and it's blending the visuals and the music. So it's really a lot of different areas that you see motion design in. And I encourage you all to kind of think about that when you're just watching these things, like look at how they're made or think about like what that could have, take to create something like that. So I'm just going to show a quick video that's kind of like explains what is motion design. I think this is kind of a good way to introduce it and talk about like what's kind of the point of motion. Why do I need it in my everyday life? Sorry if there's some lag in the video.
Salut, je vais vous expliquer un truc.
So that's just to give you an introduction to what everything motion design can be and kind of explain all the different places that you've already seen it and the places that you are going to continue seeing it as we have more screens as part of our lives now that we're home all the time. So I'm sure a lot of you have saw things in there that are familiar, like the movie titles. And so within that subset is also the UI. So like I talked about, when you're on your phone, when you're on any kind of device, really, you have the UI, which is the user interface. So the things that you click on, how do they behave? And how do they help you use this device, right? Like when you're using an iPhone, you're trying to design something that anybody can use. Anybody, whether they have different disabilities, whether they're completely new to using a device like an iPhone. The point is that you want to design so that everybody can use that. And so so part of my job is, as a UX motion designer, is that I'm designing for experiences. So within Amazon, I'm in the advertising space. So in advertising, I'm on the entertainment team. And so we're advertising for movies, TV shows. And so with all of those things, we're trying to advertise in a way that everybody can use, everybody can understand it. So I'm going to show you a cable TV experience that I built at my last company, AT&T. So AT&T owns DirecTV, the cable company. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with DirecTV or if your parents have it at home. They're basically, it's like, you know, you're watching cable TV. And so DirecTV wanted to partner with a AR device called Magic Leap. So that's the picture of the Magic Leap over there. Looks kind of funky. It looks really weird when you're wearing it too. But what this device is basically like a kind of like a VR device, but this one also has AR capabilities. So augmented reality, meaning that when you're wearing it, you see the things around you, like you see every whatever you're looking at, but you also see things on top of that. Whereas in VR, you don't see what's around you, right? You're in a new atmosphere. So for this application that we wanted to build, they wanted to create something where you can basically be viewing your whatever you want to stream on cable, but you can view it while you're wearing the headset, and you can put it on any flat surface. So if you don't have a TV or something and you just want to watch it on the wall, you can throw it up on the wall. Or if you just want to have it sitting on a table, you can do that. So they wanted to use that, and they also wanted to use things like augmented reality, where you use your hand to maybe like swipe channels, or you like turn and then you increase the volume. So here's like an idea of what it would look like in like a bedroom setting. So for this app, we wanted to create like an intro screen. So for the intro screen, we wanted to brand it to AT&T. And I know you guys are all familiar with the AT&T Globe logo. So to incorporate that, we start out first in the design phase. So I would, take a bunch of images, create some things in Adobe Photoshop, and I would put these all together and kind of create like, okay, first it's gonna look like this, and then the end frame, I want it to look like this. So you can see in like idea one, it's gonna start out with some particles, and then I want the logo to animate on. So these are called style frames. And so what you're building is kind of the idea of like a kind of like a stop motion, you know, where you're going from this is the initial animation and then this is how it ends. So for the second one, we have these particles in the air and they charge up with a like a lightning bolt, and then that creates the AT&T logo. So when you're animating, before you do that, you kind of want to think about, okay, what do I want to happen first? And then what do I want it to look like at the end? So this kind of, you guys can understand, like you can imagine in your head, oh, okay, I can see how this would animate. And this is another third idea where I want like these triangles to come together and they build the AT&T logo. So here's some, just some behind the scenes of animating. This is what it looks like when you have a 3D model. You have like a mesh. This is what that's called. It's basically just like, kind of like what you would see in if you took a net, but that's what an object is. So it lets you make it more complex or less complex depending on how many triangles there are. So this is what I came up with to have that build on.
I just want to say this is all so cool. I've never seen the behind the scenes of creating these motion designs, so this is just a beautifully made presentation. I'm enjoying it.
Thank you. I think it's just, you know, when you see these things in real life, it's just interesting to know like, oh, this is what the person goes through to build these things, right? So this is what the, if you're in the DirecTV app and you're seeing all the content, the movies, TV shows that you can click on, we would first create like a loading animation, right? So that loads the title and then you can click on it. So this is some animation of that. And then this is how the AR app behaves. Like you can place it, and then this is how it would animate on. So then you have your carousel, and then you can click on these things. This is like the little loading animation.
That is so neat.
So this is what I mean when I say augmented reality, as in you see your surrounding, but then you have this other element that's in your reality. It's augmenting your reality. So here's some more examples of that, how you would click on stuff. And so this is another part of it where you're talking about how do we convey the idea, right? So we're using this blue line, for example, showing the viewer that, hey, this is what you're selected on, by the way. And then the loading animations are kind of to give the device time to load that content. But you don't want to be staring at a blank screen or you're going to think that the device is not working. So that gives you an idea that, hey, just hold on for a sec, your stuff's coming up. This is another part of it. You can see that this is the mesh for the AT&T globe. And so the amount of rectangles here defines how complex the animation is, or complex the model is. So if you have more rectangles, you can, so every line is somewhere where you can bend it, you can do something to it. So if you have a lot more of them, you can do a lot more, basically. And here, with the beta here, we have, that's how it looks like. So if you have a 3D model and then you want to make it blue, for example. So to get that blue, I have this image here and it's flat. So it's kind of like if you think about, you have an object, you have a globe, and then you're taking a blanket and you're wrapping it around the globe. So that's what this is. This is the UV map. And so the blue, we're wrapping that all around this 3D model. And so this beta is part of that. So you can see here, that's how we have a little, like we have the dark area of blue, and then we have like a little highlight, and that is wrapped around it. So these are just kind of two versions that I created for them. One with DirecTV and then one with just the globe. And you can see the 3D-ness of the globe here. So that's how the app would look like if you're trying to buy it in the Magic Leap App Store for the headset. That's like the app icon.
That's so cool. Does Amazon have a lot of AR software that makes it pretty easy to film these sort of videos, or does this take a lot of time to put together?
So this was at my previous role at AT&T, and this was kind of we're using multiple softwares here to create this. We're using Adobe After Effects to animate, and we're also using 3D softwares. There's one that is called Cinema 4D, and there's another one called Maya. And so we use a lot of different programs to create this end product here. And then we also use other programs to kind of code that, right? To make everything work. So from there, I'm going to show you another way that you might not think about that you're using motion design. So this one was AT&T had a Wi-Fi router. So if you think about how you get Wi-Fi, you have a router in your house and that gives you your Wi-Fi. But if you buy one and you want to set it up, it's kind of hard to figure that out, right? You have to look up how you set up the specific router. You might have to call your Wi-Fi provider. So it's like a confusing process. And so we wanted to create a app that kind of lets you control or kind of instructs you on how you would set up your Wi-Fi, and also lets you control if you have smart devices in your house. If you guys are familiar with smart lights, it's kind of like when you have the smart plugs and then you tell the device through, you have an Alexa, or if you have a Google Home, any of those devices, you can tell it, hey, hey Google, turn on my light. And so how that works is it's basically called IoT devices, Internet of Things. So you're telling them that if your light is on, then I want it off, or if your light is off, you want it on. So it uses it uses a system where we bring all the devices into one app, and you can control them from there. So this is a router that AT&T is selling. So that white router, I built that in a 3D software. So I built that, and then so you have to do the model, with the mesh, and then you have to light it in 3D too. So you have to add colors. Basically, you want to make it look in like realistic or whatever kind of way you want it to style it. So this is what we initially started out with. It's like a 2D drawing, and then I took that and then I made it in 3D. So this is like kind of like how the app looks like. So you click like start installation, and then from there, I worked with a UI designer who is the person that's creating all the different screens that go in this app. So they're designing where the buttons are placed, how it all looks, the overall style of it, and then the whole from step one to like the finish. What does every screen look like? So here this looks kind of confusing, but it's just a screenshot inside the software that I use called Principal, where I take all the screens and I tell them, basically, when you click on this screen, you're supposed to go here. And when you click on this is what happens. So it adds in the animation, how the buttons come up, just the structure of the app. So this is what it looks like when you click on it. So first we start out with, you just got the router. So then it texts you, hey, do you want to download this app and set up your router? And then you would enter a PIN. So from there, you can start the setup. So you'd select which device do you have, and then there's a QR code on the device. So you would scan that. This is the QR code on the back. And then you would start the setup process. So it shows you on the router, you're supposed to plug this wire in here, you're supposed to plug that wire in there, and then it'll check whether your internet is connected or not.
That's awesome. So much more clear than even just an instruction manual. I love that.
So it's just a way that, motion design in this instance, you're showing somebody, you're communicating an idea better. So you're helping the user have a better experience of buying this router and then setting it up. So from there, I'm going to talk about a way that I use motion to kind of bring awareness about a certain neurological condition. So I mentioned this before with the Ratatouille example. So synesthesia was my thesis project in college. And so synesthesia it's a neurological condition, and it's basically where you use two of your senses at once. So you can't really explain why you do it, but it's just something that some people experience. So if you look at these two shapes, a lot of people will say, when asked, if I ask you which one is Booba and which one is Kiki, which ones do you guys choose? Feel free to answer.
Booba to me would be the one with the rounded edges, and then Kika would be the sharp pointed one.
Yeah, so a lot of people would say that that Kiki is a sharp pointed one, but you don't know why, right? You don't know why you say that. And so that's kind of how synesthesia happens, where you might listen to music, and then, for example, if you listen to jazz music, that might be color purple for you, and you don't know why. And people that have it are born with it, so they think that everybody else is seeing jazz as the color purple too. So that's kind of how that condition works. And it can be all different senses. It can be food, like taste and touch. So it's a different combination. So the one that I focused on for this project was sound and visuals, which makes sense for motion design. And me and my thesis partner wanted to create like a music visualizer as an installation. And so that led somebody who, we wanted to recreate the experience of somebody who has synesthesia for somebody who doesn't have it, so people can kind of understand what that means. So for this one, you want to, especially because I'm starting out with showing awareness, right? You want to understand what you're showing awareness about. So I did my research with Michel Gagne, which is the animator in this scene in Ratatouille. And so I talked to him about, he actually has synesthesia. And so that's why they wanted him to animate this scene in Ratatouille. And I talked to him about, like, how do you see these colors, and how did you decide that this is what cheese is, as a shape in animation, and this is what strawberry is. And so he was telling me about how he visualizes colors with the way he animates. And also I talked with the president of the American Synesthesia Association, and he gave me an email list of a bunch of synesthetes. So it's kind of like when you're doing motion, you want to start out with your design, but you also want to do research, especially if it's something that has to do with other users. Like if you want to convey something, you want to make sure that you understand what you're conveying. And then you also want to understand if it's for user interface, you want to understand the user. If you're designing for, say, kids, you want to understand how they would use the device. So this is some style frames of what I wanted to envision and how that would look. So then I created a font for this project. So I used a program called Adobe Illustrator, and I created each of those letters. And so it's like things like that you might not think about what work goes into creating a font. So once we did that, we did research with actual people who have synesthesia. We picked 5 songs and then we sent them to these people, and then they would give us drawings of what they would see when they listen to the songs. So on the left, you can see there was one guy that would give us these kind of drawings for every 5 songs, for all 5 of the songs. And every drawing had a different number of colors. And what we realized was that, for example, this song, Persephone, has like 20 instruments. And so that corresponded to the amount of colors that he would use in his drawings. And he had no idea that he was doing this. So it was really cool to see for him too, that he has synesthesia where he can detect like the amount of instruments in the song, and that's the colors that he sees. And it's not like something that is, he feels like he has some kind of superpower. He thinks everybody sees it this way. It's not any different for him. So then here's another drawing on the right of these shapes that somebody drew for one instrument. And then in the middle is like a 3D render that I created using those drawings. So from there, we built an Android app. So this is what that program Unity that I was talking about that we would use to take all of these different things that we created, the font, the type, the how we'd want the menu to look, how the menu would move. We would use all of those things and put them together, code them in Unity. And then I also created on the right a 3D mock-up of, so I'm creating this installation. What is that going to look like? So that's what that is. And here's the building process of us actually building out this whole installation, including all the Home Depot side of it. So from there, we had the screens of the menu. So each of these different music genres had a song, and you can click through, and you're thinking about like, you know, how do we show somebody that this is a menu? So we need like buttons, and how do we click through these different genres? So here's a quick video of how we built the whole process from start to finish. So that was a touchscreen installation. And so we built the touchscreen and we created the Android app that would work on it. And this was just the animations that we created.
Get me, I thought that heaven back. When the water is coming, the tide's getting high.
So that's the animations and how that corresponds to the genre. So this is just more pictures of the installation. And the synesthetes were saying that it was like seeing it in double because they're seeing it in their head and they're like watching it play out again. And that's all I have for you guys. And I'm open to any other questions in terms of art school or any other creative.
Awesome. That was so wonderful. It was just so cool to see all of your different projects and kind of how you progress through them. I guess my first question is definitely how you went about applying to art schools, how you decided that you wanted to go to art school, just anything related to kind of why you chose that path.
Sorry, are you guys seeing my video? I just realized. Oh, there we go.
There we are.
Yeah, so for art schools, I would say that when I first started applying, I realized that I really wanted an art school where I was looking for computer animation. And so I wanted to pick a major that I wanted to pick a school that had that major, first of all. And then I also wanted a school where I could kind of go from, you know, the skills that I learned there with 3D animation, 2D animation, and put it into a career where, you know, a lot of people don't want to go to art school because they don't think about art as a real career or something that they can make money in. And I think you really have to think about, are you really passionate about it enough to, you know, stick with it, even if it doesn't start off that way, but you work your way there. And also, do you want to put in the work? Because, you know, I think when you think of art school, you might think of it as, you know, it's a lot of fun and stuff, and it is, but it's also a lot of work. And in a traditional sense of a college, when you think about, okay, if I put in all this work and I spend all this time on this project, I'm definitely going to get an A in it. And that's just not how it translates to in art school, where you basically could put in all the work and then you can still not get a great grade on it, because it's very subjective. It's about, you know, what do people perceive your piece as?
That's tough. The subjective part of it is really tough. Mm-hmm. We have a question from Theta. She asked, did you always think that you were going to do something with motion design? And if you didn't, then what would you want to be?
I did not think that I was going to go into motion design, actually. So when I applied to art school, I went to Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida, and I applied as a computer animation major. And so computer animation is a little bit different, where that is what you think about normally, like Shrek, Pixar movies, Dream, like all of that is the character animation side of it. And so that's what I thought I wanted to do. And I applied as that, and then found out about motion, and then I fell in love with that. If I wasn't doing motion design, I think I would probably, it's tough. I think it would still have to be a creative field. I think I would probably go into either like interior design or fashion, something that also seems very interesting to me.
Yeah, that's really cool. I also loved seeing in your final thesis with synesthesia, the fact that you were doing, like, there was woodworking, there was just so many different components to that project. So throughout your time in art school, did you take a wide variety of classes, or was it mostly focused on motion design?
So it depends on the art school. Ringling is very major focused. So if you want to do motion, then a lot of your classes are going to be for motion design. You're going to have like general education classes, like art history and like liberal arts, writing. You'll have all of those things, but you can pick kind of your focus. So if you want like a fine arts minor, you can do that. If you want a business minor, you can do that. The woodworking part of it in my thesis, that wasn't something that was required or anything. It was just something that we were like, okay, well, we want to build a touch screen, and how do we do that? And so that just came with the idea, and for us to get to that finish line, we ended up having to do woodworking.
Question from Marilyn. How is the current job market for motion design?
The current job market for motion design, I will say, is that in a pandemic, when you cannot shoot things, you cannot film things as easily, you need people who are sitting at home and can animate. And so I would say it's pretty good right now, because this can be done from anywhere, and you can get you can tailor the kind of work that you want, right? So because it is so far reaching in terms of the options, like you can work in movies, like you can work on apps. So if you decide that you want to go into a certain field and you really put all of those things into your portfolio, then I would say that the job market is great, as long as you're putting yourself out there and you're kind of marketing yourself as a tool in that specific area.
That's awesome. I have a question for all of our girls. Have any of you heard of synesthesia prior to today's presentation, or do you know anyone who has synesthesia? Mm-mm. So when I was around
Well, you know somebody that has synesthesia. Pharrell has synesthesia.
What was that?
I was saying Pharrell has synesthesia.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. I remember when I was around your guys' age, I read this book called A Mango-Shaped Space, and I became very fascinated with synesthesia. So if any of you you like to read, we always encourage our girls to learn inside and outside of the classroom. So if you'd like to read something, A Mango-Shaped Space is about a young girl who has synesthesia, and it's really interesting. And I think it'll be cool to read about that after Alekhya's presentation and just kind of think about the things she brought up in context with the book. But yeah, how did you, oh, okay, we got a question from Mackenzie. What was your favorite part of your synesthesia project and why?
I would say my favorite part was probably not knowing how to do any of it. And like when you figure something out and you're like, oh wow, like I did not think that I would be able to do this, or like I didn't know how to create an app. I didn't know how to code it. I didn't know how to code at all. So, or I didn't know how to like build a touch screen or anything about that. And so I think if you're really passionate about these things, you have to want to learn about it on your own. And so you have to kind of put in the effort. Nobody's gonna show you that, hey, if you want to create this thing, you need to know this, this, and this. You have to decide those things and whether or not you want to put in the effort. So I would say it's really fun when you figure it out, like that moment when you're like, oh wow, this is actually working out.
That was a good question, Mackenzie. So something that comes up and has come up in our speaker series is how a lot of these industries are dominated by men, and that we're really trying to get more women into the tech industry and more girl coders, and that's kind of why we view Girls Code Lincoln as such an important organization. So how is it with motion design? Do you feel like it's pretty fairly represented, or are you one of the few girls, or are you one of the many girls?
I would say in motion design, when I was in school, it was very female dominated, like 60% female, 40% female, at least at my college. And I would say in the industry, it's more male dominated. So there seems to be that gap of um, this is like what is graduating out of colleges, but then that number seems to be fluctuating out in the industry. And I hope that, as we get more designers and more people that are interested in this, we can have more females in motion. Right now, I would say um, from the whole time that I've been working, this is the first time at Amazon that I have a motion designer. Like my manager, who's a motion designer, is female. And so a lot of times it becomes that, people drop off or they choose to pursue other things. But it's definitely like male dominated as of right now.
I wouldn't have guessed that it was like more dominated by females in college and then kind of changed. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm happy you have a manager now who's female. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any things that you do outside of work or in work that kind of help you stay connected to other females? Or are there any like organizations that you, I guess, just like hobbies and things in your free time that, yeah, I'm not really finishing my question. Basically, we also encourage our girls to do more outside the classroom and join organizations and kind of empower women. So what are examples of things that you do?
There's a great Facebook group. It's called Pun Animation, all one word, that has all female animators, motion designers, graphic designers, and I encourage all of you to join it, even if you don't ever post or anything. It's just people are posting cool work. And if you want to know more, people are definitely willing to, if you just want to have a Zoom chat with them, somebody will definitely want to teach you more, or just, talk you through like what that process is like of going into this industry and how their experience has been. Other than that, there's also great groups like there's one called Women in Animation here in LA, and there's also, I think there's one for motion design as well. But yeah, the Pun Animation Facebook group is definitely a great resource, and people are always posting on there, even for like jobs that we need. So we need a female animator here, or we want to have this kind of representation for this piece. So I definitely check that out.
That's really neat. I think especially during COVID, it's important to have those kind of internet groups in order to keep us connected. And I just want to thank you again, because Akriti, as you all know, you've met Akriti. She kind of reached out to some people on LinkedIn and Facebook and just cold reached out and asked if they wanted to join the speaker series. And that's where a lot of our speakers came from. And Alekhya, I believe that's how she contacted you, was through one of the Facebook groups or just online. So it means a lot to us that you're willing to spend your evening and chat about animation. And as we're kind of finishing up the next 10 minutes or so, any other girls who have questions, feel free to send them in the chat. But we do like to ask if you have parting advice for the girls, if there's anything that you'd like to encourage them to do in their lives, and anything related to women empowerment or career stuff.
I would say if you're interested in, creative fields, or if you're interested in an industry that you don't really know much about, I would say reach out to people, find a person on LinkedIn that has a job title that you would be interested in learning about, and just message them. It's really, I would say it's really empowering for women in that industry when they reach out to people who are just starting out and explain that process or help them out. I think that that's really helpful in terms of that turnover rate of getting more girls in these industries, whether that's coding or tech or whatever. Sometimes we just don't know what a industry is or what that field means or what do I have to do for it. And so we feel kind of intimidated to get into it. And so I would just say learn about it and see if do you like that? Do you not like it? What do you want to know about it? And I think that is really what helps you decide, if you're in high school and you're applying to colleges and you're thinking about a major. I think that is really what helps you. And I know that can be a really intimidating process.
That's great advice. And I feel like most people, even if it's just a stranger reaching out to them, they'd be willing to offer advice. And
yeah,
I love that advice.
I think the best thing about being a student is that everybody's willing to help you. Mm-hmm. And if you as a student, if you reach out to somebody on LinkedIn and you say, hey, I'm a student, I'm trying to learn about this thing, and I know that I see that you work in that industry, can you tell me about it? Can I chat with you on the phone? A lot of people will say, yeah, sure. Let me tell you about what I do, because everybody knows that feeling of, oh, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to major in. And so I think a lot of people are willing to help out.
That is great advice. And I'm in my college study room, and so the lights just keep automatically turning off. We've got another question from Theta. Was there anything in your career that made you feel like giving up, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, I would say that when you're first starting out, there's definitely a point where, you can do all of these things, right? Like I can do this and I can do that. But then people don't know that you can do it. And so you have to show them that you can do it over and over and over again and constantly prove yourself, right? So with motion, I would say that when I first moved to LA and I was freelancing, it was really hard because when you, especially in the freelancing world, if they see that you have never worked in that city that you're trying to apply for, they won't hire you because they want somebody that for sure lives in Los Angeles or something, that can come into work tomorrow. And so that's kind of a hurdle that I had to face, where I just moved to LA and I was trying to book jobs in LA. And it became really like, okay, well, I can do everything you're asking me to do if you just give me a chance.
Any other questions from our girls? All right. So just want to thank you again so much. This has been really wonderful and eye-opening. And as always, these are going to be posted afterwards. So if you guys want to show your friends or watch any parts back, feel free. Next Tuesday, we're going to have Kalenda with us, and she's going to be speaking about how technology works in the nonprofit field, so how it's helped her. And this will be a really cool speaker just because Girls Code Lincoln is a nonprofit, and ACRT has done a lot of work in order to make it a registered nonprofit, and there's a lot of kind of behind the scenes on that. And so next speaker will probably be chatting a little bit about that and just in general how technology can be useful. So thank you so much again, and I hope you all have a lovely night. We always like being able to bond still during COVID, because it's sad not being able to meet for clubs in person. So thank you for still joining for the speaker series. And thank you again, Alekhya. Your advice has been wonderful, and I know the girls all really appreciate having you here as a role model.
Thank you. This was so fun. I know that it's really tough right now with COVID, but I encourage you all to just think about, with the things that you already use, the apps that you already use, where do you see things that you like or things that you want to like recreate. If you're familiar with Snapchat, there's something called Lens Studio, and you can download it. It's free, and you can play around with it, create like the filters that you use in Snapchat. So it's a free tool you can use to play around with right now while you're at home.
That's so fun. And this whole presentation is a great reminder of just, loading images. There's things that I hadn't even thought about that people had to go in and design. So super cool presentation. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you all so much. Bye.